Welcome back to another Monday Market Update. My name is Brad Lupkus with Frontier Bank Wealth Management and Trust, and here's what the markets did last week. Last week, markets rose across the board for the second consecutive week following positive news on the vaccine front. Now, this is enormous news for all the obvious reasons, but from the economic perspective, from the market's perspective, what this means is that the economic recovery that we have seen so far, it's likely to continue throughout 2021. Now, what we've seen so far in the economic recovery front is last week, for example, jobless claims, a new report came out. And what this report showed us is that for the fourth consecutive week, jobless claims fell here in the United States, and those claims are now at the lowest levels that we've seen since this pandemic began. Also, on the corporate earnings front, every quarter, publicly traded companies typically will report how they did in the prior quarter. And what we've seen so far is that of the companies that have reported their earnings, over 80% of them have reported higher than expected earnings in the third quarter. And when you put all of this together, what it really means is that the economy, it is healing. And it is likely to continue healing, barring any unforeseen setbacks in this vaccine front, and the markets are recognizing that. Last week, the S&P 500 closed at an all-time high on Friday. For the week, it was up almost 2.25%, and year to date, the S&P 500 is up almost 13% now. In the Russell 2000, which looks at the performance of small companies here in the United States, that index was up over 6% last week, and year to date, that's now in positive territory. It's up 4.5% for the year. If we look overseas in the developed markets index, that index was up almost 4% last week, and it too is now in positive territory for the year. It's up a little over 0.5% now. If we look at the emerging markets index, that index rose 1% last week, and it too is now up over 9% for the year now. So all in all, it really was a positive week for all of us and for investors in particular. Markets went up, we got good news on the vaccine front, and really what this all means is that while we're not out of the woods by any means, we have a long ways to go before this vaccine is going to be in full distribution. We're still seeing rising cases here in the United States and overseas in Europe. So we are going to see a lot of volatility here in the short term. But long term, it does seem that there is at least a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you have kept a well-diversified portfolio, and if you have kept a long-term perspective throughout 2020, and that has not been easy because there has been a lot of emotions and it's been a roller coaster of a year. But if you have kept a even keel and a long-term perspective, believe it or not, your accounts are probably up in value for the year. And if you can continue to keep your money well diversified, and if you can continue to keep that long-term perspective and try to keep emotions out of your investment decisions, it's likely going to continue to serve you well, not just here in the short term with the volatility that we're likely to see, but long-term as well as we move past this pandemic and as we get back to a normal life. Thank you again for watching this week. Again, if you do have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below, and we'll see you next week.